What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the Sixers Digest YouTube channel. My name is Barnard, and today I'm here to break down why the Sixers are releasing a secret weapon and a fan favorite maybe having a larger role this year. So I'm here to dive into Nick Nurse's comments, take a look at how this could fit into the Sixers puzzle this season, and dive into my overall expectations for it. Now, before I dive fully into it, I would like to recommend to make sure that you guys subscribe to this channel. As of now, 93.6% of you guys watching these videos have not. I want to change that. I want to keep you guys get involved, grow this into the community that I want it to be for Sixers fans. I believe we got a long season ahead of us, one that I think might exceed expectations, that I'm starting to get the juices back, starting to feel optimistic again. I know there's still a lot to deal with the James Harden situation, a lot of twists and turns still to happen, but I'm here with you guys every step of the way, so make sure that you hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and make sure you're along for the ride with me. So let's dive fully into it. I want to kick things off by watching this clip of Nick Nurse on the Pat Bev podcast with Roan. I know I broke down one quote from it last week already, but some other good little nuggets in there. So I want to start off by watching this and take a look from here. So we'll start off with this. And then
you look at a guy that the Sixers just re-signed this summer, Paul Reed, Bball Paul. This is a guy whose body type you're familiar with. You've had these like 6'9" guys with these kind of similar body type, similar game. How do you think that Philadelphia 76ers fans can expect you to deploy him this year? What do you see in him? Does he play with Embiid? What's his future with this team?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I love him. Plays hard, got an incredible nose for the basketball. I got a lot of time for guys that can go get the ball.
Yeah,
right? The ball's pretty important in
yeah.
the game, right? And he really can go get it. And even when he doesn't, he just misses it about 25 times a game where you think he's going to get it.
Taking swings at.
Yeah. So and he's had a great summer. I mean, amazing. He's really worked from the moment I got the job. He got in the shooting program, and he's been on it. He's in shape. Will he play with Embiid? For sure. Like I don't think that's a question. Like he's gonna be out there playing hard. He's gonna be defending. He's gonna be doing probably more than he's done before. I think he's ready to take a step up, and he can play.
Love that.
Yeah.
So that is music to my ears right there. That is exactly what I want to hear. I've been a Paul Reed truther throughout since I've seen this guy play basketball. I do believe he's ready for a bigger role, and he's starting to show that. I mean, I've been salivating over the highlights of Paul Reed all offseason. Now we're seeing the Rico Hines run stuff leak out. I'll pull up one right now, as a matter of fact. But we've been seeing these throughout the entire offseason, and it does get me excited. That just look at the difference in the confidence in him as a shooter, him hitting pull-ups, him taking off the catch, that him as a floor spacer, that makes a big difference from a positional versatility standpoint of him being able to play next to Joel Embiid, and he even can do more that he's showing flashes. Like, look at him getting this, attacking the rim off the dribble, guys closing out on him, and this lay-in. These are layers of Paul Reed's game that have yet to be uncovered, that we've seen him as a grunt work guy. We've seen him doing the dirty work, and that's all going to be very necessary to his role. But if he just is able to hit open catch and shoot threes, that makes the life way easier as far as how often these Sixers can put him on the floor. Now, the biggest conversation, has to do with how to optimize Joel Embiid. That we've seen these Sixers try these twin towers before when we think back to the Al Horford era. That did not work. The difference in this situation is, well, number one, the Al Horford thing was just simply not a fit. That was not built to work from the second that we tried it. That Horford did not buy in the same way. There are a lot of issues. Embiid was not the level of offensive talent at that point in time as he currently is. Now we're talking about one of the more polished offensive players, a guy that can create his own shot off the dribble, can space the floor as an adequate outside shooter. He was not really all of those things at the time when we tried this. Nor is Paul Reed the level of player that Al Horford is, that there's for sure a different level. But I do think that he can provide some defensive impact in a way that is necessary on this team. So let's think back to what is this Sixers team missing around Joel Embiid. Some of the biggest things are effort and toughness, and the definition of that is Paul Reed. Now, think about what he brings from a rebounding standpoint, and I'm going to pull up Joel Embiid's stats here. So let's take a look at what Embiid can physically do on the floor himself. We know that he is MVP of the league. Looking at those stats last season, 33.1 points per game, 10.2 rebounds, 4.2 assists, 1.0 steal, 1.7 block. We do see the drop in rebounding if you watch through this. Starting, if you want to date back to the 2018-19 season, 13.6 rebounds a game. He has not touched that in several years now. Dropped down to 11.6 the next year, and to 10.6 up to 11.7, and down to 10.2 last year, which is the lowest since the time that he was a rookie. That rebounding thing, I do think is of note. That I think that is an area the Sixers need to address. And the kind of two routes that you go here is you either scale back Joel Embiid's offensive workload and put somebody else on rebound duty, a.k.a. Bball Paul, or you scale back the usage and give the responsibilities to Joel to step it up on the rebounds, because we see it. You can see it in his effort level. When he is locked in, when he is focused, he's 7'2". He's huge. He's a massive human being. He's a good athlete. And when he wants to focus on rebounds, he can do it. But that's not a natural part of his game, if we're being completely honest. That Joel Embiid is always going to be a guy that consistently rakes up a good amount of rebounds because he is the massive size of a human being that he is, and he is playing under the basket on the defensive end for a large portion of the time. But that's not an area where I would say he excels. I don't think he's necessarily a good rebounder. He's not a guy that has the instincts for where the ball are. He's just a guy that is a big body who ends up with it a lot. Paul Reed is a guy where I do believe the instincts are there, that I think he reads it off the rim much better than Joel. He's a guy that's willing to lay out and leave that extra effort. And you know what? That's what we want him to do, because the best case for these Sixers is by no means Joel Embiid being a dirty work guy, of him diving for rebounds, getting on the floor, doing those types of things. There should be room for another guy to do this. And I think there's a real world where Paul Reed gets the start over PJ Tucker, even if PJ Tucker is around this season. And I think that would be the right decision, if we're being honest. We know exactly what PJ Tucker is at this point in time. And we've seen the moments with PJ. We know the dog's in there. And we also know that he's a guy that kind of is attached to these James Harden conversations, that we've seen him speak outwardly on social media, having Harden's defense, saying he's not switching sides on his guy. I respect that. I understand that. If that means you're a part of a trade, that means you're a part of a trade. So I'm not going to enter in the season with the firm expectation that PJ Tucker will be here, nor do I think that drastically changes the championship outlook for these Sixers. I know a number of Sixers fans were upset about the lack of box score impact of Tucker last year. I get it. I hear you. I would have liked a little more as well. He's definitely a little more cooked than I was hoping, but I still think that there is some meaningful effort levels, veteran leadership, and just a presence that he does bring to this team. So he's not a guy that I'm rushing to get off the Sixers, but I do think that regardless, I want his workload scaled back. Let's get the best version of PJ Tucker come playoff times if he is on the Sixers, and why not see what Paul Reed can actually do? We're seeing the development in his game. They obviously paid the man, gave Paul Reed a new deal this offseason that they reached agreement through restricted free agency. It looked like the Utah Jazz were going to swipe him, and then Sixers went and matched that offer in restricted free agency. So now it's time to unleash him. Let's see what he can do. And another key part that they touched on, and Roan touched on in the question there, so an awesome question by Roan, is talking about how Nick Nurse has experience with players like Paul Reed with similar body types, similar styles of game. If you think about the Pascal Siakam, the Chris Boucher, even OG Anunoby, these versatile positionless guys, that's what Nurse has really excelled at. And I think a lot of this is kind of what he had to work with in Toronto. Scotty Barnes is another guy I'll throw in the conversation there. But that was obviously the archetype of player that they were targeting to bring in. I think Nurse is kind of looking forward to having a more traditional offensive and defensive just roster. When you think about a guy like Joel Embiid, who's a true rim protection center when he is locked in, and a guy like Tyrese Maxey, who essentially is a true shooting guard, James Harden, who is a true point guard, there's more positional just locked in on this Sixers roster than really the Raptors deal with, and you can view that through whatever lens you choose. But I do think Nick Nurse does have the experience with having these versatile players. It's time to see what Paul Reed, how he fits into this equation. And the madness that he brings is a real weapon. His active hands, his ability to sniff out the ball, as Nick Nurse mentioned in that response, he is that caliber of guy. So this is now time for Nurse to kind of lean on the tools that he has in the past for expanding those guys' games. A guy like Chris Boucher, who is night and day different from when he came to the Raptors. All these guys. Pascal Siakam has won the most improved award before, been a guy that's perennially in the conversation, a guy who I really did not like and has grown into an all-NBA type of player on the verge of that. He's obviously a shade below the superstar level, and a guy that will be brought up in the max contract conversation when it comes to next offseason as the Sixers seem zeroed in on this cap space plan and attracting the top free agents. Pascal Siakam may very well find himself in that mix, so I do believe he's a guy we will continue talking about. But for now, we have Paul Reed, who plays a similar style as Pascal Siakam. I'm not saying he has the offensive ability or the touch on a jump shot as Pascal, but that kind of just ability to create his own, the way they move, the way they create, it all reminds me of each other. And I do think Paul Reed has an argument as a better defender, which is where he will make his impact on the Sixers roster. When you have players like Joel Embiid, possibly James Harden, you need low-impact guys or low-usage guys, low-usage and high-impact guys who don't need the ball a ton to make a high impact. Paul Reed will do his damage getting offensive rebounds, kicking out, getting putbacks, being switchable defensively, picking up the slack for others. When you have guys like James Harden and Tyrese Maxey, who unfortunately are never going to be super high caliber defenders for one reason, for different reasons. For Harden, it's kind of the effort level. For Maxey, it's just his kind of small stature and physical nature. You have to have positive guys to surround them with. So Paul Reed can be that guy. When you have a front court of Paul Reed and Joel Embiid, that is a fearful duo for guys to attack the rim on, to be able to drive the paint. Those are two high-impact guys who can make a strong impact. So as the Sixers search for their identity this year, as they try and figure out who they are, I do think Paul Reed is going to be a much bigger ingredient in this season than a lot of people are giving credit. We've seen him grow out the mud. We've seen him get rewarded with the contract. He has improved night in and night out. And the other key factor here is Nick Nurse is going to allow Paul Reed to play through his mistakes in a way that Doc Rivers never did. That Doc Rivers looked for any reason to pull P. Reed off the court, get him out of there, get the corpse of DeAndre Jordan back on the floor. That is not going to be the Nick Nurse situation. That I do believe he's bought in on Paul Reed. Reed has been one of the hardest workers all offseason. He's been in the building in Philly. He's been playing at a number of pro-ams in the Rico Hines. He's been everywhere. It is Paul Reed's time. He's earned it. He's earning the moment, and I can't wait to see what he brings on the floor this year. So thank you guys for tuning into this video. Make sure to drop a like on this. As I mentioned, drop a subscribe. Let's get those numbers up. I can't wait to keep talking about through all you guys. Appreciate you for tuning, and I'll be back with you next time here on Sixers Digest. Peace.